This will be a tutorial on how to use a crochet hook and yarn to attach your individual quilt blocks to each other for the 4 points cardigan. So I have my blocks set up here. Importantly, when you set them up, you want to make sure that obviously the contrast color triangles are opposing each other, but you also want to make sure that this diagonal line on the solid ones is completing the diamond. So this is the setup. You'll see that I have a bunch of yarns hanging off all of these tails just sort of around. If I had planned ahead, I could make certain tails a lot longer so that I could use them for seaming. I found that hard to think about in the minute when I was knitting, so I just have all these tails that I'll be tucking in later, and that is just fine. So to seam, you want to begin by putting right sides together for each of the quilt blocks. So I'm going to be seaming these 2 right sides together and these 2 right sides together. And depending on what the edge looks like, the way that you insert your crochet hook looks a little different. So I am going to demo that. So first I have my yarn attached to the ball over here. I'm gonna just put that off to the side so we don't have to look at it. Step 1, I'm gonna take my crochet hook and insert it into the corner of the top piece. Maybe I'll move these 2 to the side so that they're out of the way for now. So I'm gonna insert my crochet hook into the corner of this first top piece, and when I do it, there will be these 2 little legs of the stitch at the edge. I am picking the side that is closer to me, aka the wrong side, because when we flip these in, I think it's nice to see this little edge. So that is the main goal with picking the back leg of the stitch. And then on this side, you can see that this was the cast on edge, but over here, it's along the rows, so it looks a little different. But it's sort of the same idea. You're just going to stick your crochet hook into the leg of the stitch in the corner. And so now you have 2 on your crochet hook. And to begin, I'm just going to loop my yarn over my crochet hook and pull it through those 2 little loops. Then I can drop the tail, just gonna leave that over there. And from there on out, I'm just sort of repeating those steps. You'll notice that if you're using 2 different yarns, your squares might be very slightly different sizes. That is not going to matter. You're just gonna wanna make sure that they're sort of lined up so that the completed piece is the same. So again, I'm sticking my crochet hook into the front or wrong side leg of the stitch over here. And then on the other side, same thing, the back leg of the stitch. This time I'm gonna pull through those 2, leaving the 2 on the hook, and then hook again to pull through both of them. This is a standard single crochet. So you're essentially doing a standard single crochet along the edges of the square to seam them together. You do want to do this a little loose so that it doesn't make too tight of a seam. When I get to the corner of this first set of blocks. There's no need to disconnect the yarn here, just double checking, see how you have this nice little line. I don't need to disconnect the yarn, I can just keep going, but I do need to make sure that my blocks are still oriented correctly. So let me just get those set up. So these are the next blocks. I'm going to just carry on, same thing, stick my hook into the corner and into the back leg of the stitch. And I can just carry on, there's no need to separate or break the yarn. Once I have done this first long stretch across all 4 of the smallest blocks, I can break the yarn. So to do that, you can just chain 1 extra, break your yarn, and then pull through. So now what we have is this. It's sort of floppy, it looks like this, but we are now able to basically do the same seam but the opposite direction so that we can complete the quilt block itself. So that will look like this. Pull all of your tails to the inside so that you don't have to pull them in later. But now I'm just gonna seam along these 2. Same exact process. Same thing again, pull through that final loop, break the yarn. Now we have our proper quilt block assembled. I really like to tuck in all of the ends as I go so that there aren't a huge amount of ends at the end. So I do recommend using a latch tool. You can also use a darning needle or your crochet hook to tuck in the ends. No need to do 1 at a time. You can do 2 at a time. I take my latch hook, start about 5 loops away from where the tails are, working my way towards the tails. And then I make sure that all of those little loops are behind this latch. Then I put my 2 tails inside the latch and pull through 1 loop. Then I stick the 2 tails inside the latch and pull through all of the loops. And that will make a knot on the first one and then tuck the tail in. And that is how you would tuck in all of the ends quickly. So that's the quilt block. The next step would be to do the same thing, right sides together along the little spacers. Make sure you're paying attention to the orientation of the triangles. And that's about it. You just want to make sure that you're going along the outer or wrong side loops as you are doing it so that you get a nice border. Here is my finished quilt block vest, and I just wanted to show you these sort of border stitches that appear if you do all of those steps correctly. You'll have this little edge ridge between the individual pieces, and I think that edge ridge gives the whole piece a lot of really nice dimension.